So yesterday we sat down and talked about one of the most intriguing prospects in the class of 2023, and five-star tight end Deuce Robinson, who's yet to make his collegiate decision. And just a few hours after that video was released, the class of 2023 got another major shakeup, as former Notre Dame commit Brandyn Hillman, who was recently released of his national letter of intent, made his new college decision, committing to the Michigan Wolverines. And today, we need to break this down. But before we can, as always, y'all know the drill. I have got to hear from you. Hop down to the comments, give me a Y for yes or an N for no. Are you excited that Hillman will be playing his college ball for Michigan? And let me know what you're thinking. If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe. Hit that bell notification. I do constant college football content. You don't want to miss any of it. And if you enjoyed the content, be sure to like and comment down below. Those interactions seem small, but they are massive to content creators such as myself. And we're on a push to 20,000 subscribers. I'd love to have you a part of the unbelievable community. But having said all that, let's jump right into this. And before we can really start evaluating this, we have got to first ask and answer the question, who is Brandyn Hillman? Well, Brandyn Hillman is one of the most gifted prospects in the class of 2023, and if we look at the 24/7 Sports Composite rankings, he comes in as a top 300 prospect in the nation, regardless of position, a top 10 athlete in the nation, and a top 10 player in the state of Virginia. And if we actually look at 24/7 Sports rankings in and of themselves and not the composite, he comes in as a top 150 player in the nation, regardless of position, specifically coming in at number 130. So this is a big win for Michigan. Anytime you can get in these guys that are top 300 prospects or top 10 in their respective position, that is a massive win, and especially when you turn on the film of Brandyn Hillman, because this is a guy who can flat out do it all. He had over 1,000 yards passing, he had over 1,000 yards rushing, and he's expected to make the transition to the college level on the defensive side of the ball, specifically at that defensive back. So this was a guy that was an absolute Swiss Army knife in high school, and it makes complete sense that he was so coveted. Because as I stated in the intro, Brandyn Hillman was a one-time commit to Notre Dame, and had actually signed to Notre Dame's 2023 recruiting class, a recruiting class that was a really solid class for Marcus Freeman, something we're going to touch on here in a little bit. But after a while, he requested a release from his national letter of intent, and now he is with the Michigan Wolverines. But before he had committed to Michigan, many colleges tried their hand at garnering his attention. Whether we're talking about Ohio State, whether we're talking about Michigan, who ended up winning, or LSU, several institutions tried to come to the dance. Only one left successful. And if you are a Michigan fan, it must be sweet that you got a win over Ohio State, even if it was a short time frame. This recruitment process from the time he was released from his national letter of intent to the time he committed was very short. So, short battle, it's still a little sweet that you get a win over your bitter rival. And if you're not new to the channel, you may have heard me talk about this before. I love recruiting. It's one of my favorite aspects of college football. But if you give me a recruiting battle where two bitter rivals are going head to head, I am going to eat it up. I talk about this all the time whenever we talk about prospects that both Oklahoma and Texas are going after. I think it just adds such a layer of intrigue for the fans of both programs. I think it's awesome for college football. And so too, this recruiting battle can go into that sort of category where you have bitter rivals going at it. And this is a big win for Michigan in terms of what they're going to be able to try and sustain, because the Michigan Wolverines have a top 20 recruiting class in the nation in the class of 2023 and are already starting off 2024 with a solid recruiting class, because Jim Harbaugh and the Wolverines want to have a continuation of the success they've recently found. And when I say recently, let me kind of preface this point, because Harbaugh and Michigan have been a successful team. They've been a winning team. They've been a really solid team. But the previous 2 years, they've been able to get over the proverbial hump that it took them so long to be able to do, beating Ohio State and making a college football playoff. Now, people can come to me and say, yes, they got to the college football playoff and then they were beat 2 times, but they made the dance. And this is a point that if you are not new to the channel, you will have probably heard me talk about before. I am very adamant that making it to the dance is so difficult, something we really don't talk about enough. Michigan has made it twice, and they want to try and continue having that success. So getting in a win for a guy such as Brandyn Hillman, who can come in and compete for your secondary, that's going to make everybody in that secondary better. It's the iron sharpens iron mantra. That's exactly why you want to stack so much depth. In a perfect world, if you're looking at, let's say, a safety position, you want your starting safety to be a former blue chip recruit, but you want the 3 guys behind him to be all former blue chip recruits. And you want in practice for those 3 guys behind him to be pushing your safety. getting in guys such as Brandyn Hillman pretty much well guarantees that there's going to be solid depth and at the very least competition that's going to make everybody better. I think that's a really compelling factor. But I did want to talk briefly about Marcus Freeman and Notre Dame because this is a big hit to that Notre Dame class, and still, it's a top 15 recruiting class in the nation. I think we need to give Marcus Freeman his flowers here for a little bit, because when we really dive into this Notre Dame recruiting class, this was a class that could have been really stellar. We need to remember, Brandyn Hillman is not the only guy that looked like he was going to end up in a Notre Dame uniform to not. 5-star safety Peyton Bowen was a one-time Notre Dame commit and then flipped to Oregon and then to the Oklahoma Sooners. Keon Keeley, the number 2 prospect in the nation, the number 1 edge prospect, was a long-time Notre Dame commit who was now set to play his college football for the Alabama Crimson Tide. And even still, with the loss of Bowen, with the loss of Hillman, and with the loss of Keon Keeley, this is a top 15 recruiting class. So I know it's easy to pile on Notre Dame and say, oh, you've lost coordinators, you've lost recruits, what's going on over there? While those are true, it's still a top 15 recruiting class. And being able to sustain those losses and maintain a top 15 recruiting class, it is impressive. Now, I am interested to see how Marcus Freeman's second year with the Fighting Irish will go because of some of those losses, but I did want to briefly talk about this because I've seen people talking and piling on Notre Dame, and while, they have had some huge losses in this recruiting class, I did want to kind of give the other side of that equation. While you're not wrong, they've had major losses, look where they're still ranked, and that does mean something, right? It does mean that they assembled a really solid class, and if we look at the average recruit rank, it's sitting at like a 91 plus, so that's a really solid recruiting class. But what a win for the Michigan Wolverines. This is a guy that Notre Dame no doubt wishes they would have kept, especially with the loss of Peyton Bowen, and Michigan is over the moon that they were able to get him in. But I can't wait to hear from all of you. Hop down to the comments, let me know what you're thinking. That's it. See ya.